Awesome. Right, we're live. This is Dr. Emily. She is definitely one of my health gurus that I like to go to. I know I shouldn't use that word, but she is everything around the foot. And we know sometimes feet, people don't want to talk about them, everything. And I was kind of one of those guys. And so I came across Dr. Emily, and I'm looking at her website, and literally the human foot is a masterpiece of engineering, a work of art by Leonardo da Vinci, which is interesting. But literally how she transformed my mindset around the foot. And maybe she can give us a quick little brief about like how you start your intro into how powerful this little piece of engineering down the bottom end of our body can transform the way we live and health-wise, everything-wise. So, yeah, welcome.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and to share, like you said, some tidbits on the feet, how fascinating they are, my passion for feet, which sounds kind of crazy to have a passion for feet. But really, I'm fascinated with movement, human movement, thinking like athletics and performance and dancers. And I find movement very beautiful. And really movement is what gives a lot of us life and energy and the socialization and all of that. And I look at our feet as that critical piece to that puzzle. If you start to lose some of your foot function and your connection to the ground, your sensation of the ground, your entire movement pattern gets affected. So I use looking at the feet in a very unique way as a gateway into movement longevity, which is something I speak about a lot, and then optimal human movement or movement optimization.
Indeed. And like that's only a brief, but you're involved in so much other incredible things with, like I feel like you're the new age podiatrist. Like a lot of times people think podiatrists going in and they come out with a $400 pair of insoles or something like that, and an arch support, which I worked at Athlete's Foot and Foot Locker for many years, and it's really interesting. Back in those days, it was all about like how much support could I get in my shoe, and you're selling people with the most support possible. And then literally the guy that employed me 10 years ago at Athlete's Foot and Foot Locker has gone into barefoot shoes. So it's actually come out and gone, you know what, there's just so much that's been learned about the foot in the last 15 years that this whole barefoot and like activating the feet, and like you give people a foot workout. And she took me through it the first time, and I was working up a sweat after 15 minutes of just activating my foot. And so I remember vivid moments like that. That is super powerful. So I think you said how many structures or muscles are in the foot versus anywhere else in the world and in the body?
Yes. So you have 26 muscles in each of the feet. Yeah. And so if you're looking at how that compares to the rest of the body, it's obviously high. A lot of those muscles, or actually a majority of those muscles, are in the bottom of the foot, and they're the smaller muscles. So they originate and insert in the bottom of the foot, which I don't want to make it too technical, but starting and ending in the bottom of the foot means that that's their sole action. They play a really important role. Well, actually, there's three main functions that when I look at the foot as the foundation. So if you're trying to train the foot or just be a badass in general when it comes to movement, you want to think of the foot as balance. So your ability to stand on one leg really is the linchpin to everything else. Standing on one leg. 2, being able to absorb impact forces. So every time your foot hits the ground, the impact forces are really your body's energy. So the more that you can harness the ground relationship and those impact forces, you are able to do kind of the recoil of the beautiful movement. And then 3, it allows you to release energy. So your foot can go into what's called a lever. So if you go into like a calf raise, so if you do a calf raise and you're kind of like on your tippy toes, that position that the foot is in is called a rigid lever. And the human foot, only the human foot can achieve that position, which means primates can't do that. No other mammal can achieve that foot position, which is powerful and critical to how we're able to run the way that we do, the way that we dance and jump and all the beautiful movement that we do is because our foot can become a rigid lever. So be a badass at movement, train your foot to be balanced, to be absorbing shock or impact, and then to be a lever. And then you'll be a badass.
So we've not only evolved upstairs with our top 3 inches, we actually evolved from ape with our bottom 3 inches as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. And then if you want to say like higher brain, cognitive, memory, emotional, just like everything up here, the neocortex, our big brain,
Yep.
really correlated to the timing of us starting to walk, and us being able to walk were these changes that happened in the feet. So you can't think of evolution and how our brain is what it is without thinking about the feet. I mean, they're totally connected. So I speak a lot about like biohacking the brain, or kind of cognitive hacking in a sense. And if you're trying to do that, if you stimulate your feet, it'll actually enhance cognitive performance, because they're just so critically connected from a sensory perspective, but then from a movement perspective as well.
100%. And I know our mutual friend Ryan Glatt, who was meant to be down in Queenstown, which we just finished our Evolve event, this whole cognitive health or brain health. And I know that's another massive passion point of yours in regards to that whole connection and everything. And definitely got me thinking in regards to like this brain health. Like, not often we're talking about like when do we go to the gym to work out our mind and connect and up level and get this thing working upstairs. And we've got lots of mutual friends in this whole movement space of like, it's not just about going to the gym and lifting weights, which is, I don't think fitness has evolved too much. I can speak because I'm not in the fitness industry, but 60 years is still, you look at most of what fitness is happening versus the small niches which you're in around movement, and the 4 quadrants, if we're talking about IOM, is just having different aspects to your health, fitness, and whether you call it biohacking or getting this thing to work better. How do you think that's going to transition now? Is this the way health and fitness, how do people start to really understand the benefits of upstairs and the whole scheme of health and fitness?
I mean, I think that for people, like you said, that are in like niche fitness or the most innovative concepts within health and longevity, it's already very prevalent. Like brain training, if you go to any, like Ryan and I were at a functional aging summit last year, and everything was about cognitive, like brain training, biohacking, dual tasking, brain, everything. It was very in vogue. That those trends start to trickle down more into like a mainstream side. But I also feel that when you have any situations that disrupt the certainty of health, which is what this pandemic is doing, right? It makes people think about their health twice, right? And about healthcare and kind of systems like that, that I hope that people will then take their health more into their own hands and see, what can I do to really keep myself healthy head to toe and then everywhere in between, which includes cognitive. And then there's a lot of advocacy, especially here in the States, around Alzheimer's. So the number of Alzheimer's rates is just on a continuous high, that the government puts a lot of money towards Alzheimer's prevention and research around that. So I think that will start to pick up more trended, especially now when we go back, and people will be doing things at home a little bit more, kind of taking their health into their own hands so that they can really focus on that longevity side.
So you really think it is a wake-up call? Because I definitely think a lot of people, it's crisis mode, and yes, it is a crisis right now, but it's actually, I see it as an opportunity. Like, it's bringing people together. It's the connection is at its all-time high, with Zoom is literally going through the roof, and it's the new playground. It's like everyone is on Zoom, connecting, reaching out to people like this to have conversations. But yeah, the health is a massive question. Like, it's we all knew that we had to get out and walk. Like, the simple thing is to get out and exercise. And like I've found, being in lockdown, the only thing that you're allowed to do in New Zealand is go for a walk to get some fresh air. And it's been incredible to see the amount of people that are going out and getting their wellness win in each day, and not talking about going to the gym or going to do a group fitness class. It's literally about going outside and doing some sort of exercise. So do you think this is the wake up call, kind of like the industry needed and health in general needed?
I do. And I also think that what that brings up is a lot of mental health, where I think people will then focus on exercise for their health, meaning like their physique and things like that, and keeping, body fat down and whatnot. But the more that we emphasize the importance of the mental health association with exercise is important. And I think right now people are finding that I'm going out to exercise, not because I want to exercise, but I have to get out for my sanity, essentially, and get the fresh air and maybe connect with nature and just find that disconnect from the TV that's just constantly playing with the news or something like that. And to bring it back to the brain health and cognitive, is that one way to bring that awareness to people is through the mental health and the stress aspect, because that is tied into the nervous system in the brain. So if you can initiate the conversation of mental health, stress, depression, anxiety, and then, memory and dementia risk and, being the best version of you, all of those things kind of tie in.
Because I think Bill Clinton said, not Bill Clinton, Bill Gates from Microsoft. He's like, literally, and Ryan gave me this quote, I think he's striving his whole life to make sure that his top 3% is always operating at peak performance, because if this is not working, there's no point having anything else. So he's just constantly working a way to keep this thing healthy upstairs. So I thought it was fascinating watching his documentary, but still fascinated. This is the first conversation I've had with someone that's had coronavirus. And I know a good friend of mine whose house is in New York, Todd Herman, was quite public about let's take this thing seriously. And I know you've been quite vocal about how serious the world needs to take it. I'm proud of our country that we are taking it super seriously and lockdown. But yeah, maybe just share a bit about your last couple of weeks and the thoughts and emotions going through this whole coronavirus thing with yourself.
Yeah. So as you said, I have just been going through coronavirus. I'm now on day 14. Day 14 from my first symptoms. So it's day 3 of having no symptoms, which is great. But I think initially, before I started experiencing symptoms, like a majority of people our age and kind of around our age, globally, we're thinking of it more as like, I'm fine. Like if I get it, I'll be fine. I'm young, I'm healthy. It's a disease of older people. The people that are dying from it probably wouldn't have survived just a standard flu anyway. So it's not anything to be worked up around, and that people are hyping it up because look how many people die from just the standard flu in general. So I think now with that, people become a little bit lax as far as protecting themselves, masks and gloves, and they'll wash their hands, but you'll kind of ride the edge a little bit, and I was a little bit guilty of that myself, because it didn't really hit its reality yet, even though there were dozens and tens of thousands of cases in New York City where I live, down in the financial district in New York City is where I live. I would start going around, and then 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, I started getting some GI symptoms, and it's not really spoken about that much as far as some of the symptoms that I was experiencing, which made it even more frustrating or confusing, is starting to experience some of the GI symptoms. And then I started to experience like my arms weren't working, which is very weird. Where I was in our warehouse just processing some orders and stuff like that. And it was like they were very lazy. I couldn't fold the boxes, or when I would type a lot of errors on the keyboard. And I was like, what? This is so weird. But then just thought I was tired from having a baby at home and all that stuff. And then the next day, still GI symptoms, weak arms. And then I started getting brain fog, which is another symptom that they don't speak about a lot. It actually ties to the cognitive stuff you were saying. And then eventually 4 days after having those low-grade symptoms, I was driving to Connecticut 2 hours away, And I started getting chest pain then, and like a weird, like shortness of breath, nothing crazy, but just like, is my chest hurting me? And then again, because of how it is, there's fear that's induced. You're just like, do I have chest pain, or am I thinking that I have, like, because there's such a somatic side to it. It's just like, do I really feel nauseous, or am I? And so it was just the weirdest thing. And I then called the doctor. They refused. They're just like, you don't have severe symptoms, so we won't test you. So I'm just like, okay, maybe it's in my head. I don't know. And then that night, for the first time, I had a little bit of shortness of breath. So I was like, okay, this is definitely like not just I ate something or whatnot. I actually have shortness of breath. And then, okay, so I decided to stay in Connecticut. And then each successive day, my shortness of breath, only at night would I notice it a little bit more. Fast forward to day 8 of symptoms, I go to lay down and I feel like a sudden chest pain, and then like the worst shortness of breath I've ever had. Like I couldn't inhale for more than like 2 or 3 seconds, and that was it. And I like freak out. I'm alone. I'm not with my family. I'm with my dog and me. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I was so scared that I was like going to die in the middle of my sleep. So I called 911, the ambulance came and they checked me out. Yes, I did have shortness of breath. They did all kind of the COVID kind of protective things. But then even at that, they were still like, okay, yes, you have shortness of breath, but your lungs are clear right now. And from the priority compared to other patients, we're not going to put you on supplemental oxygen how you are right now, and you don't need to be vented, so we really can't do anything for you. So I was like, so you're telling me I need to go back upstairs by myself and hope that it doesn't get worse, and then if it does, you know, I hope your response time is fast, because I don't, you know what I mean? Like they're just kind of like, there's not a lot that you can do. So then next day I called my doctor, and I didn't know it was even an option, but she started me on steroid inhaler right away. And that's been the thing that's actually helped the most, is having that steroid to open up the deep part of my lungs and start to reduce the inflammation in them. And then each successive day has been better, right? I would not sleep flat. I actually did a postural drainage where you do, picture like a down dog, and you're in that position for 5-10 minutes, and it actually slowly drains the lower part of your lungs, which actually worked. I started coughing for the first time, where this entire time I didn't have a cough. I didn't really have a fever, didn't have a sore throat. So it's just these weird symptoms. And then now I'm, you know, like I said, each day got better since being on the steroid inhaler. But I will definitely say that it took me by storm. It scared me shitless that now I'm just like, okay, listen, y'all, put your masks on. Like, this is serious. It is so scary. I don't want anyone to go through that. Like, I don't want my parents. I don't want my husband. I for sure don't want my baby. I don't want anyone to go through that, because it's so scary to be able to breathe and to be left a little bit on your own kind of regard, because you're in this mild to moderate symptom and you're young and you're quote unquote healthy. So there's not a lot of media around it. There's not a lot of information from the CDC. There's not a lot of resources. So you have this huge, massive pool of people that just think, I just fend for myself at home, and within 2 weeks, I'll be better.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of them, it doesn't happen. And then they go to the hospital and they end up having to get vented. So it's very scary. I think people need to take it very seriously. I think people need to wear their masks, wash their hands, wear their masks, don't leave home and wear your mask, because we need to, you know, as a united front, like just comply to get past this. Like a shorter period of containment or quarantine or sheltering, like a shorter period of higher intensity suck is better than like a dragged out moderate suck, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and thanks so much for sharing, because obviously a lot of people, I've got my little dude playing with the kittens in the background. That's why it's the lighting's changing. He's thinking it's hilarious. He might join us shortly. Is to be able to share to New Zealand, because yes, the government's taking it seriously, but they're not hearing from public's not hearing around coronavirus. We still in the mindset of it's only old people that are getting affected, and yes, their fertility rates are probably higher, but still, like, you're fit and healthy, but someone our age that maybe is not, it can affect anyone. Like, so take it super seriously, and I'm totally with you. Like, it absolutely sucks right now with the isolation, especially with 3 kids at home, and not being able to do anything. All your normality is being taken away, and the new normal is kind of beautiful, actually, because you're at home and connecting with family. But as you said, short-term pain for long-term gain. It's a 4-week, a long time. So do we even know the long-term effects of, like, the damage that it potentially could do to the lungs, or it's just still early case? They'll know, and because this is a new virus, isn't it? So you don't know if it's destroyed lungs or
right. So actually, if you look at SARS, some of the past medical imaging of SARS or MERS or similar viruses, is that what they end up doing to the lungs of those that survive, if they had it severe and survived, and you look at an x-ray, it's actually like punched out lungs. So it punches a bunch of holes in the lungs. Wow. which is very severe. And then anytime you have inflammation anywhere in the body, it doesn't matter where it is, and I speak about this a lot with my patients, is that inflammation causes stickiness. So imagine if you have inflammation in your lower lungs, all of the alveoli and the different parts of the lung stick together, right? You could call it scar tissue if you want, if that helps people, but it's actually like it's an adhesion or a stickiness. So will some of these people coming out potentially have a lower lung capacity, both an inhale and an exhale maximum capacity? Probably 100%. I know that my symptoms, even though they scared me like crazy, I reacted so quickly and got on the steroids that probably it's very low grade residual, if anything. But I'm still going to go to the pulmonologist after. I'm actually starting Wim Hof so that I understand, because I'm like, if this is a wake up call for me, that maybe I had some low risk factor, or maybe even like exercise induced asthma, I don't know, that something that was missed, and this will trigger me to take my lung health to a higher level, then that's what I'm going to do about it, and try to train that, so that if anything like this happens again, I'm more resilient.
Yeah, I think Wim Hof is going through the roof at the moment. I've seen so many challenges of Wim Hof coming up on social media, and I've been doing it sporadically for the last year, and also did some other deep breath work over the last, and it's powerful. Like, we forget to breathe properly, and that's what I took out of doing all this breath work the last 12 months. Is like, we're such in a anxiety state, whether it's waiting for the next email to come through, and you're like, is that a good email? Is it bad? It's like the whole stress response. And I know you talk about a lot of this is good stress, bad stress. Like, stress is actually good for us. It's different doses. And I talked to Aaron Callahan about this, is about the recovery around stress is probably more important. So yes, we need stress, whether it's exercise, mental, whatever, but it's knowing the recovery periods. And I know you talk a lot about that. So what's your thoughts around stress? And obviously there's a lot of, and you've just gone through it, fear and anxiety, uncertainty around this period that we don't know how long it's going to go for. What are some lot of tips around mental health and also physical health around trying to keep our stress levels down? Is there any sort of little tidbits that you could give us around what we can do around stress and motivation?
Yeah, I think especially now and in general is obviously movement. We spoke about that. Going outside and exercising is really important for mental health. I think that speaking to someone is also very important. Whether that's through a group setting, that's, online, betterhealth.com is one therapists, and not having any pressure or expectation around it, where someone very close to me, I won't say just because of connections, but someone very close to me has a mother that's going through this right now. And she made a really good point, because the way that I had initially looked at COVID in this quarantine was like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm going to learn a language, like just kind of that personality. And she posted something really interesting where she was like, if someone comes out of this quarantine without a new language or writing a book or a new skill or whatever it is, doesn't mean that they were lazy or unproductive or not disciplined, because everyone's going through, makes me so emotional, through their own thing.
I feel you. No. So, and I know this is really hard being away from family. It's like this isolation and sense of loneliness. Yeah. It's hard for us. So as you said, we just need to talk to people. So,
right. So if you come out of the quarantine with no skill and you just watch reruns all day, and that was your mental health, then that's how you needed to process that period. And don't put a pressure on you that you need to come out of this with having accomplished something. If that makes sense.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it is like social media is powerful, and Facebook has just taken over the internet and Zoom, and there's literally like advertisements not targeted to people that have been forced losing their jobs and everything, and like you feel the pressure of not to sit on your ass. You need to be. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole, and I've been in those. It's like, oh my goodness, like how do we? Hey Taxi, you want to have a chat soon? He's getting excited. He might jump on for an interview. It's the pressure and anxiety about like, I need to do more. I need to pivot my business. This word pivot keeps coming up, and it's take the pressure off and just use this time to breathe and be with the people that matter the most, or just reach out to people. But it is so many people under that pressure, and thank you so much for bringing that up. How are you? So business-wise, and thanks for sharing that. That's super powerful. How are you? You do a lot of stuff online already. So has there been a mindset shift, and a powerful businesswoman at that? So how are you thinking mindset-wise through this next 4 weeks? Are you taking this time, and especially the next 2 weeks when you get home with your beautiful family? What are you using this next 2 weeks for, or what are you going to try around?
So we actually, all of my businesses, from my medical practice to my education company to Naboso, which are the insoles and mats, I've been doing telemedicine through my practice for years, because a lot of my patients are actually not from New York. So they would either fly in, or I would do virtual telemedicine before. So that platform was already kind of established. So that's great. My education company, a lot of our education had shifted online anyway. So what I did over the last couple of weeks and then moving forward is just really focusing and reinforcing that we have these online certifications and online education. And then through Naboso, 50% of our revenue was direct to consumer on our website. So now we've just shifted even more energy towards it. And we're kind of upticking our social media marketing campaigns. We're actually doing a rebrand. So it's a really good period to be doing a rebrand. Is we can do all this behind the scenes stuff when everyone's kind of doing their own thing in a sense. And then we get this whole excitement of our new packaging, and our insoles are going to be colored, and massive campaign that will launch in the summer when people get kind of back to life a little bit. So it'd be perfect timing for that. really all of that. And then I am starting to write another book, which is on the overachiever side.
Yeah, great.
It's my nature, I can't help it. But yeah, I'm writing another book that is about owning your health, so empowering patients or consumers or people around the world to take their health into their own hands and to advocate for themselves. And if you feel like something's not right of what you're hearing from an opinion or a recommendation from a doctor's, you have every right to question it. I'm a huge believer in self-advocacy, partly because I had a very traumatic birth, which we won't go into, but a very traumatic birth that I had to really advocate for myself the entire time through it. And had I not, things could have dramatically turned out a different way. So it's really around just advocacy for women who are going through labor and the birthing process, but just everyone in general, that you have a voice, you need to know that voice. And the more empowered you are when you interact with the healthcare system, that's your right? That, a doctor is still a human being and a doctor still makes mistakes. And my recommendation to my patients is really an opinion. And humans by nature are biased, and you have to be able to understand that human nature of doctors and then advocate for what you want, understanding that.
Wow. And is there sort of trying to get it out this year or maybe next year with the book? Who knows? Pressure.
Yes, I would love to get it out this year. Of course, things get busy. But I need to just
and your beautiful daughter and amazing husband, Michael, that I've met a few times in New York. Like you are, like when me and Sarah connected with you in New York, like you guys are just life goals, yeah, like definition of like living, breathing, building a company. Michael's got his own business. Like, yeah, you guys are definitely aspirations. So what you guys are doing on that side of the world. But I thought, and I did think about you when a friend of mine, Steve Young, I'm not too sure if you've filmed, he's very in the holistic health space. I asked about this whole gut health thing going on, and I'm like, we should, hey Pexy, can you be a little bit quiet, buddy? We're just talking to the world right now. Okay, thanks, buddy. And this is a new normal, isn't it? This is going to be kids.
Exactly.
And about testing for gut health, and he's like, you know what? We don't need to test because actually 90% of people's guts are probably off anyway because through our diets and that sort of thing. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Does that maybe refer to the foot as well? Like we can test the whole population around the feet, but like I know how rigid and unmobile my feet are from playing hockey days and being tied in boots for 15 years. It's like, you know what? As long as we could prescribe something to get better mobility in our feet, and you've been that little magical person for me to get more mobility in the feet, it literally has changed all the way up my body with flexibility just by releasing tension in like reflexology and going for a massage. I love it by just getting a massage, and afterwards your whole body feels better. Do you think that's same kind of coalition with like the gut health, but also feet? You could literally say a majority of people's feet are not mobile.
What you could say is that a majority of people need to do daily foot release because your feet are being stressed with every step that you take. If you stand all day, if you sit, technically your hips get tight and then that tightens your feet. If you walk a lot or run or you're very active, your feet get tight. So really regardless of your activity level or demands you place on your feet are getting stressed. So I could say in general, everybody should be releasing their feet on a golf ball, lacrosse ball, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, every single day. I don't care what foot type it is, across the board, everyone needs that. And then deviating away from it has to do with your unique foot type. So I try to not give templated recommendations of, let's say, shoes or do you need orthotics or kind of things like that, because there are so many variances of feet. And that's the thing that I see some people doing, is making very polar statements. I try not to make polar statements, saying like everybody should be a barefoot runner, or everybody should be wearing, minimal shoes all day, every day, because I don't know. I don't know what your foot type is. What's your injury history? What is your, the demands that you're placing on your foot? So the way that I tell patients, or just everyone in general, to understand this is, your trick to not getting injured in your feet, having plantar fasciitis or whatever it is to balance stress and recovery. If you can balance the stress you place on your feet with the recovery you put your feet through, you have to balance that, right? Then you will not have foot pain. So if you stand all day for your work, you have to increase your foot releasing you're doing to more than 5 minutes twice a day, because the stress is hitting this fatigue point. And then if I sit on the couch and don't do anything, well, maybe I don't need to do as much releasing, right? Because my stress is not as high. I think the more people understand that, because I actually treat a lot of runners who stand for work. Let's say they're a teacher. So they're standing in front of a class all day on concrete. And then they say, oh, and then I'm a runner and I run every day after work 5 miles. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but you can get my point.
10, 12.
Right, there you go. That their stress, because of their work and then them being a runner, they're hitting that threshold faster than, let's say, me, who I don't run and my job is kind of like constantly moving. I'm not statically in one place on my feet. So the more you can understand that art, like that's the art of how I try to prevent foot pain in general, but also for my patients, and then how I get them back to their sport after they have an injury or something like that. It's that perfect, trying to find that harmony for them. And then not all shoes are appropriate for all activities. Like if you stand all day and you're a teacher, you probably should have an orthotic, which actually people are surprised I say that, because it goes against my whole barefoot, image or whatever. But standing is unnatural on the body. It is one of the hardest things or most stressful things that you can do to your feet, is to stand in one place. So anyone like a police officer, I work with a lot of the airport security people, so TSA here in the US, because that's a lot of stress. They're standing in one place. Teachers, nurses, anyone who works like a cashier, like, trainers, actually, so many personal trainers are my patients, because they think that they need to look the image of like barefoot, natural movement. So they all wear barefoot shoes, Vivo barefoot or whatnot, in the gym all day, standing, training their clients. And then they all get plantar fasciitis and they're surprised. And I try to get them to understand that those shoes are not appropriate for standing in one place for 10 hours a day, right?
I went through that
physiology.
I went through that rookie mistake, and I was excited because I got the Vivos, and because I could never wear the webbed 5 fingers ones, I have webbed toes, and Vivo came out, and I was like, sweet, I'm going to do a 10K run. I was broken for 2 weeks because the foot just wasn't used to it, and as if I met you, it would have been like, right, go and do 500 meters and then slowly build up, because the foot is just like, I'm not used to this. But for all the frontline people out there that are literally being our little saviors and warriors right now, who exactly are on their feet 14 hours a day, and anyone listening to this, what could be, and I know our mutual friend Trigger Point or golf balls or how can we look after our feet after, or these people after 14 hours on their feet? So because it literally stems up the whole cell. The foot pain gets to knees, to hips, and everything else. So what can these nurses, doctors, police officers do 15 minutes a day to try and help with their feet?
I would say that 3 things that I would do is to do the foot release that I mentioned. I have a video on YouTube where I actually show how I do the release. I'm not a fan of rolling the foot, even though I probably said that earlier.
Everyone, just think to roll.
You just roll your foot. No, you don't want to roll your foot. You want to, there's actually 5 places on the bottom of the foot where I show in this YouTube video of more pinpoint pressure, and you hold the body weight there for 30 seconds, move the ball to the next spot, hold it there for 30 seconds, next spot, next spot, next spot, and you're kind of moving around on the different feet, is the longer they do that. So if you're on your feet, as long as these healthcare workers are, call it a good 10, 12-hour shift. Nurses for sure are doing a 12-hour shift, is probably spend a good 15 minutes releasing the feet like that, even if they're just like tired as can be. It's going to take pressure off of their lower back. It's going to release all the way through the calves and the hamstring. Really, really important for them. Two, I would get orthotics, like even over-the-counter orthotics. Here in the States, we have Power Step. I don't know if you have that in New Zealand or in Australia, but Power Step it's like a $25 over-the-counter arch support. And then, just being biased with Naboso, I would put Naboso on top, which is a sensory insole. So you're keeping the nerves of the feet stimulated. You're keeping the arch supported. So we get this combination of biomechanical and sensory support. And then three, I would make sure that they have the appropriate shoes. When I was going through residency and spending 12 hours a day straight on the hospital floors, the only shoes that I could wear were actually Danskos. Have you heard of Dansko?
No.
It's like a clog. Oh, okay. It's a clog. It's like a chef shoe. A chef shoe or a nurse's clog. If you Google it, you'll see exactly what I mean. Yeah. But it was designed for like a nursing clog, and then a lot of chefs wear them. But sneakers, and it's kind of a slant, a heel toe drop to it. The sneakers, after that long period, if you don't have an arch support or something, is just going to crush the feet. Even if they're like supportive New Balance shoes, it still isn't enough for the demands of what it's putting on the body. So I would advise them to get, shoes that are not sneakers. You do not want to be in like a Nike Free or an Allbird even, just because there's not enough support. And after that many hours, you just gotta this is not about trying to keep your feet natural and, the strength period. They're, in a war right now, as they keep saying on the media, that they need just the support so they can get through this. And then we can focus on the other stuff when they get through this. So but can they do that release at the end of the day? If they can, when they're just like sitting and just mindlessly staring at a wall, which is what I would do after a long day at the hospital, it just stare at a wall, zone out, eat your dinner, and release your feet if you can. It's really going to help. And unfortunately, I think that they're just fried. So they come home and just want to sit on the couch or go to bed or take a hot shower, and they don't get that TLC or that recovery to their feet. So then they go to their next day and the stress goes to here. And I really hope that some of these workers are not getting plantar fasciitis, and they're not able to rest because of what they're going through, and they have this severe plantar fasciitis. I guarantee that you have many of them with it.
Because let's face it, like if nurses and doctors can't walk, they can't work. It's as simple as that. Like their job is on their feet. It's like they can't wheel themselves around the hospital. So no, thanks for that.
Tell you real quick. I just want to share with you real quick, since we're on the topic of it. So at Naboso, we actually did a pilot study with one of the manufacturing facilities here in Connecticut. And we looked at 27 manufacturing floor workers. So think of them almost equivalent to like what nurses and doctors on the concrete. They're on their feet a 10, 12-hour shift. And we had them use our Naboso insoles for 6 weeks. And what we saw was 93% decrease in foot pain, 87% decrease in back pain, 84% decrease in musculoskeletal fatigue, and a 67% increase in worker reported productivity. And this is just using our Naboso insoles.
I did see that on Facebook, so I'm happy to kind of, if it's public, I'll share it, and I'll also share.
It's not, but I will make it public so people know.
And just on that Naboso, because I was going to finish on that, and I'm just at 45 minutes, and I'm like, this is awesome. We can go for another 45, but I know this is literally game changing in the way that the foot just works. Like, how many nerve endings are in the end of the foot? And that blew me away, that other stat. And it's like, if we're not using those properly, well, then we can't walk. Walking is imperative. So yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So I don't have Naboso is it's on my shirt. Naboso.
Yeah.
But Naboso technology. So we're the first and only textured or sensory insole that's on the market. And what we're doing is we are bringing textured or 2-point discrimination, so like Braille, across the entire insole. It's a little pyramid. And the pyramid stimulates the nerves in the bottom of the feet, which then stimulates the muscles in the feet. So this is taking advantage of your natural foot support system. Yeah. And then when your feet are strong, it obviously connects up to how you control your core and your lower back, hence the decrease in lower back pain. And then the more that you can feel your feet or connect to your feet, not just posturally, but dynamically, your movement is different. So will your foot posture improve? Will your body posture improve? And then will you actually strike the ground not as hard and be kind of passive and disconnected? It's showing that, yes, we're actually getting improvements all across the board, that we're trying to, or we are, disrupting and changing the way the insole and the orthotic industry looks at feet and foot function and the role of orthotics and insoles. Right now, it's all biomechanical. It's an arch. If people say insole, they just think arch, right? Where's the arch? How high is the arch? It's controlling my arch. But there's so much more to what we can do with the foot. And we're trying to demonstrate that through our research, through these pilot programs, through working with manufacturing facilities such as the one that we are, and then really replicating that and showing that, yes, there is a role for sensory stimulation.
How sensitive is the foot versus the hand? That's always fascinated me.
Yes. So the hand is way more sensitive.
Yeah. I know, I'm thinking, but it still has a bunch of nerves in the foot. I'm just like, how much sensory can we get through our foot? That's probably
even though there's a lot more through the hand, what we don't realize we're missing. How do I say that?
But there's not enough pressure going through the hands versus the feet's always got pressure, so you don't need as much.
Yes, but the subtlety of that stimulation, we actually don't realize because we're so used to being disconnected from that stimulation. And a lot of people will say that. If you look at somewhat like athletic performance research related around barefoot training, barefoot activation, and then the athlete goes and performs whatever sport or whatnot, is always at the end of the research study, it says, just as an aside, that all the athletes that were studied doing this barefoot activation wanted to continue doing it after the study ended, because they were just like, this feels good, this works. Like, I didn't know it was like this because I'm so used to being in shoes that I didn't know what I was missing. Yeah. So it's really exciting to show people. Really, some of our greatest applications at Naboso is medical and medical wellness, more like aged care, people with numbness in their feet and neuropathy. And it's so fascinating to hear the response of someone who has not felt their feet in 20 years. And I'm telling you, like, that's totally going to make me cry too. But having people respond and just be like, oh my God, I can feel my feet again. Like, I have not felt my feet in 20 years. To me, that is so powerful to give that gift to someone in a $50 insole. That completely changes their life.
I was just thinking with MS, so mum's got MS, and I don't know the full context of MS, but I'm sure it would help people with MS as well, yeah? Because
Yep. So actually, one in 4 people with MS will get neuropathy or numbness in their feet. And then 1 in 4 will also get what's called foot drop. So the foot will just drop and they have a hard time picking it up when they walk. But that's one of our top medical conditions that we use it for is MS. And we're doing a research study with one of the MS research facilities here in Connecticut around MS and its effect with gait.
Wow.
It's really profound.
The power of the foot. It's amazing, and everything else that you do and you stand for, and empowering women, empowering people just to think about their health, a new frontier of health. And I think this is just the little time that we need to rethink about health and everything else. And as a friend that's always been there for me, and when we come through New York, we have a great time reconnecting and just being that support person in health and just a good friend. So thanks for the 30 minutes today, and I just can't wait to see you back with your beautiful family and get well and healthy soon. And thanks for sharing everything. So,
of course, thank you, everyone. Please stay healthy.
Okay.